Good morning and happy Saturday, you guys. It is Amanda and Barron with Kicking Cancer Cares on KSLM Radio, 104.3 FM and 1220 AM. Our sponsor for this first half is Oddmo's Pizza. Best pizza in the town.
Ever.
In the world.
Yeah.
In the world. They've got garlic pastas, and they've got chicken strips and boneless wings and cheesy garlic bread and potato poppers and salad and JoJo's and all the amazing pizzas that every other place does not carry. That is Oddmo's Pizza. Thank you, Mike, for all of your support.
Yeah, Mike's been with us now for well over 2 years. Over 2 years.
Yeah.
From day one.
Well, and he just has such a big heart. I really, truly love Mike and Oddmo's Pizza and all that they stand for.
Exactly. Last week, we had a guest call in from Colorado. Today, we have a guest calling in from Kentucky.
Yes.
But people might recognize these voices. Are you guys with us?
We're here.
So this is John and Chyla Brown, who most people know from Albany, except you guys are in Kentucky, right?
Right.
We are thrilled to have you back. We're thrilled that you're willing to come back and give us a little bit of an update on life over the course of the last year. But before we get too deep into it, we always like to do a recap. And last week's guest's name was Terry Tucker. Such an amazing story.
Yeah.
Such an amazing attitude.
Amazing attitude. So full of so much positivity.
Yeah, I found a quote this morning, and I thought it was so appropriate. The quote says, "Attitude dictates whether you're living life or life is living you."
Amen.
And just for you guys, John and Chyla, in his early to mid-30s, Terry was a basketball coach. He got a callus on his foot, and it wasn't going away, so he goes into his doctor. His doctor said, "I have never seen this form of skin cancer." And they said, "There is no treatment for this. There is nothing we can do for this cancer." So they put him on this drug called interferon, basically to hold the cancer at bay long enough to hopefully find a cure. And they said, "Here's the problem with that drug. You're going to have flu-like symptoms." Except he was on the drug for 5 years. Mm-hmm. He had flu-like symptoms for 5 years. And
that's a long time of flu.
A long time with the flu, you're right, John. At that 5-year mark, he had 104 temperature. He goes into the doctor, and I remember him saying that his wife said, "We need to get something to check his temperature." In the time it took the nurses to leave, find the doctor, and come back, he was at 108.
Jeez.
And he said the doctors were preparing his wife that he wouldn't survive. People don't typically survive at 108 temperature. But he did. They amputated his foot, and now he's lost his entire left leg. But he's now finally beaten this cancer that was eating his way up his leg. But his attitude was just amazing with everything he's gone through.
Mm-hmm. It really was.
So that's our update for last week. The one thing that's a little different, I think, from the last time you guys were in, John, is before we had this book that was going through some recipes. I've got a new book, or magazine. It's called 100 Disease-Fighting Foods. And today's disease-fighting food is dates.
I really don't like dates.
Don't like dates?
I do not.
You've been married a while. You haven't been on a date for a while. What it says is, snack on chewy dates, and you get a whole lot of free radical fighting antioxidants. Some studies suggest that dates qualify as anti-cancer food. They're also full of fiber, which makes them excellent for digestive health and a secret weapon against type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
So even though you're married, maybe a date wouldn't be a bad idea. So that's our food for today.
My son used to be obsessed with them when he was little. Obsessed. Odd. Gross. I mean, so good. Healthy.
So good. There you go. There you go. The other update I thought I'd bring you is next Friday is the first of 3 charity golf tournaments for Kicking Cancer.
Oh, yes.
So on June the 7th, it's our Kicking Cancer on the Grass charity golf tournament.
On the grass.
On the grass.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. And the reason we put these charity golf tournaments on is, as an organization, we want to do what we can to raise money to cover our, I call them hard costs, but the cost to run any business. We have an insurance bill we pay. We have an accountant. We have an attorney on retainer if we need them. We have business costs with the organization, and so we use these charity golf tournaments to help pay those costs so that when donations come in, they can support people like Ozzy's family. We want the donations to go to our programs, so we cover our own cost.
Absolutely.
So if you want to play in the tournament, there's still time to register.
Okay.
You can go to kicking-cancer.org under events and register for the tournament. Or if you like to have a business on a whole, we have a whole sponsorships too.
Okay. And if you guys didn't quite grab that or can't find it, don't hesitate to email me, amanda@kslm.news.
Well, the reason I'm so thrilled that you guys are back with us, John and Chyla, I went back and looked. It was episode number 87 and 88. This is now podcast 201 and 202. So it was April of last year that you guys came on to a pretty emotional show to give us an update on what was going on with Ozzy back then. But since you were here last April, a lot has happened in your lives. Can you share with us what you can share with us from what's happened since you were here last April, John or Chyla?
Yeah. Actually, Chyla kind of wrote a little thing, and so I could reference it, and it ended up being 2 pages of some of the stuff that we kind of did between April and when, unfortunately, Ozzy passed away in September. But, we had talked about, what I had said about, not doing stuff to Ozzy, but doing stuff for Ozzy. And it turned out to be quite the list. I mean, we ended up going to Kentucky to meet my family, and that's where we're at right now. That's what we're calling the old Kentucky farm. We ended up getting Ozzy some chickens while we were here, some chickies, and he absolutely loved those. Every single day we'd wake up and he would be like, "Where's my chickies? Where's my chickies?" And we call him little chickie daddy. We did all kinds of stuff. I mean, we went to the Carter Caves, which is a cave trip. Or they do cave tours, and they do panning for gold and different stuff like that.
And we got to do that with Cynthia and Eric with Ozzy when they came to Kentucky to finally be able to meet us. And we were able to give them hugs and give them kisses, and Ozzy gave them hugs and gave them kisses too, and we were able to talk to another family going through the same exact battle and stuff that we were going through.
So for some of the listeners,
while we were here, we also got to Ozzy got to be around all the dogs. And
interrupt you just for a second, Chyla, because I want to make sure that the listeners that are just now tuning in that didn't get a chance to listen last year and maybe for whatever reason hadn't followed this story, can you just really briefly tell us what happened in your family with Ozzy and what he was diagnosed with, just to catch the listeners up?
Yeah, so Ozzy was diagnosed with a brain tumor called DIPG, which is terminal, no cure. And the average lifespan, actually, Ozzy fought for 18 months, which was a lot longer than a lot of other kids get. We were diagnosed, and within 3 days, Ozzy had already had 2 brain surgeries, and on the 9th day of the diagnosis, we were in for a biopsy on his tumor, and during that 9th day, there was a sweet woman named Cynthia, and she reached out to us, and her son, Santiago, was, he's a fighter, and he wanted to help and do things also for other people. So they started a foundation, and Ozzy was the first recipient of the Santiago Strong Foundation, which is a foundation that helps families during this time and helps support them with bills or just any financial burden, or helps them like afford little trips or things to do with the family, just to make memories.
And if any of the listeners want, you can email Amanda at amanda@kslm.news, and we can connect you with old podcast. We had the pleasure of having Cynthia call in while you guys were here. We had Eric and Cynthia together call in for a different episode so they could memorialize their son, Santiago, who also went through the exact same thing that you guys had to go through with Ozzy. And you said something, Chyla, that I think is really important. The unfortunate reality with DPIG is it is terminal, and it has a 1% survival rate. The average kid lives about 6 months when from diagnosis, and Ozzy got a lot more time than that, which is awesome. And for whatever small piece Kickin'Cancer had, we just tried to help get some more time for Ozzy. But unfortunately, he did pass away last September. But John, you also said something, and I remember this from the last podcast. You said it was time to do things for Ozzy and not to Ozzy. One of the things I remember that you guys did for Ozzy here was there's a little town east of Salem called Almsville. Not a very big town, but they have a festival, and Ozzy got to be the Grand Marshal, didn't he?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was. We were planning on going to the Corn Festival anyways, just because it was something that was going on, and Chyla had grew up in Almsville, and so we both knew about it. And then he ended up being the Grand Marshal, and that was just awesome. I mean, leading the parade, and it was incredible.
Yeah, and I also know there's a guy here in town that many people have met who has this food truck. It's a really bright pink food truck. And
David and Rachel.
Oh, Gracie's Sweet Treats.
Gracie's Sweets and
Yes.
Treats. They came out to meet you guys at that parade, except, Chyla, something happened there when it comes to that ice cream. What exactly happened with Ozzy and that ice cream?
Well, Ozzy was beginning to take a turn for the worse. If you want to look at it logistically and timeline, the Corn Festival was on August 19th, and Ozzy passed away September 9th. So the fact that he had the energy to do this event and stuff was amazing, but he wasn't able to swallow certain things, and his ability to do that was just getting worse. And David gave Ozzy his last ice cream that he was ever able to eat.
Well, I know that means a lot to David. I've talked to him about this several times, and you guys may or may not know this, but David has Ozzy's fingerprint, and it's memorialized in this little stamp, but it's in his food truck. He has it in his food truck.
Yeah, I made that for him.
Yeah. Well, what he was able to do to help Ozzy means a ton to David. And I don't think David realized at the time, he just shows up with a food truck and ice cream and what he does. But when he realized that was the last food that Ozzy tasted, that means a lot to David.
Well, they not only did that for our family, but they also supported our family after with the meal train, and they brought us toilet paper and shampoo and just everything that we needed. They were taking care of us and continued to check in with us. Yeah.
Now, remind me again, when did you guys head to Kentucky to meet up with Eric and Cynthia? Was that before the event in Almsville or after?
And that was before.
Yeah, that was before.
That was before.
And we, when we were in Kentucky, we did so much stuff. And, Ozzy fell in love with the dogs over here. On his 4th birthday, the Olive Hill, Kentucky Fire Department brought a fire truck down to the house, and Ozzy got to be surprised with a fire truck.
That's cool.
It was amazing. And Kentucky Christian University also, their students prayed for Ozzy around the cross and then presented him with a memorial stone on campus. So Ozzy got to be a part of that, touch his memorial stone, get a picture by that. It was amazing.
And
it's a huge stone cross too. I mean, it's probably like 10 feet tall, massive.
Oh, wow.
And made out of solid stone, and for them to put that memorial stone there and kind of surprise us with that was incredible.
So, of course, after we got back from Kentucky, because Ozzy fell in love with the dog so much, we had to surprise him. And we got him a little French bulldog puppy, and he named him Crunch. And that's Ozzy's baby. And he also, he loved that dog so much that when Ozzy did the first pitch the second time at the Volcano Stadium for Kickin'Cancer, Baron, you got Crunch in.
We did. We did. That's not typically
and not
normal.
only did you get Crunch in here, somehow my husband was able to get Crunch into the Oregon Coast Aquarium.
Well, I'll tell you what,
it's
it's really cool. I had met you guys just a little before Cancer Awareness Weekend a couple years ago, and at that time Ozzy was still pretty healthy, so he threw out the first pitch 2 years ago. And then last year, knowing that you guys were coming back from your trip to Kentucky, I reached out and said, does Ozzy want to throw a pitch out again? And at that point, he was in a wheelchair, John, where you took him like right to the edge of the dirt. He threw it maybe a total of 6 inches. But I talked to the catcher afterwards, and that catcher was pretty moved by the fact that this kid was dying from brain cancer through the pitch out. Well, what you may not know is Cancer Awareness Weekend is again, it's in June this year, except Michael Brown, who you have met, Michael beat brain cancer. So Michael's going to throw a pitch out again, but he asked me if he'd do it twice. He wants to throw it out for himself, then he wants to throw it a second time as if he were Ozzy.
Well, that's sweet. But I think maybe Macy or Hayden should throw it out for in honor of Ozzy. I appreciate that so much.
You know what? If you guys are here in June, I will get Macy out, and she can throw the pitch out in memory of Ozzy. We'll make that happen.
We'll be there.
Good. Good. Well, I just think it's awesome that you guys, again, that's got to be such a hard decision to make as a parent, knowing that the treatments weren't working. So let's stop doing things to Ozzy. Let's start doing things for Ozzy, and some amazing memories that you made along the way. The one thing we did do at one point was we brought Scott Mills in. He does hospice. We had this conversation about hospice as a whole, but more specifically about pediatric hospice and how much different that is than normal hospice. What were your experiences, John and Chyla? What were your experiences when it comes to hospice?
Well, I mean, I would say it's a double-edged sword. There's a part of a parent that's like, you don't want to accept that. When you hear the word hospice, it's like, no, we're fighting for his life. We're trying to beat this. And if we accept hospice, then somehow, some way, we're admitting defeat. But after really thinking about it and really examining, some of the benefits that were available, it was just giving my child extra support. We didn't have to go to the hospital as much. We could get a prescription that day. We had a nurse on call 24/7.
It made it more convenient for Ozzy.
Yeah, it just that support, and that was the other thing too. It's like we are trying to help eliminate obstacles and challenges as much as we can for him. As much as we are dealing with our stuff, the main focus is how can we help Ozzy conquer this? And if you can't conquer this, how can we make this as easy as possible for him to be able to just be a kid, to enjoy his life?
Yeah,
so
you made a statement to me. You made a statement to me recently, John. I thought was such a great statement that if hospice hadn't been there, you still would have needed those prescriptions. So you would have had to get up. You had to get Ozzy up, and he wasn't in any shape to just get up and go like most kids. So it was like a lot of effort to get Ozzy ready to go to get these medications, whereas Ozzy
Right,
can
and we're
stay.
traveling for that every time.
Yeah. Whereas now you can stay in your house and hospice can bring it to you. I know that we've got a couple minutes still left, but our listeners have really grown a lot since you guys were here. What you guys did with Facebook and us trying to support that got Ozzy's story out. We've got this show being listened to in 43 nations. We've added a YouTube channel. What advice would you give other parents who might be facing this exact same situation?
I mean, I would just try to take every option that you can, get all the support that you can to surround your family and your child. I mean, if you're on the fence of accepting hospice, if you're on the fence of, something that says end of life care, don't think about it like accepting defeat. You are getting soldiers on your team. You're getting warriors to help support you that have been through this, and they give you an extra level of perspective and advice that normally you wouldn't get.
And I guess what I would say is don't give up. Because especially as a mom and a dad fighting for your child, your energy, whatever you give off, gives your child. And you want your child to have hope and still a fighting spirit about them. And you got to keep fighting. You got to keep trying. You got to have that hope. You got to do everything, even if it feels like it's too much. You need to do it. You have to do it. Do it for your baby. Do it.
Well, I know that first time I met you, Chyla, we had started the Go Team Ozzy event through your friend Sally, and then finally you and I had a chance to meet, and it was a hug I'll never forget. But you said you have to hold on to that 1% hope, and I'll tell you what, you two held on to that 1% as long as you could. And
yeah, we did.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of listeners out there, and me being one of them. I didn't understand the difference between palliative care and hospice. You had a chance to meet Jennifer Beaumont at the baseball game, and it was when they told me that Jennifer was being moved from palliative care to hospice that I wanted a definition. I wanted to understand what the difference was, because in my mind, accepting hospice was meaning basically you're going to pass away. And I was glad that Scott was able to give us some perspective that you can come on and off hospice. But I think the other piece that you said, John, is it gives you another voice, a set of warriors around you to help you when some of these decisions are really difficult to make. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I can't even imagine as a parent what you guys went through, and I appreciate you being willing to call back in and share some of that with us.
Yeah.
Oh.
If we can help anybody in this journey, we wouldn't wish this upon anybody in life. If anything that we can do just to make it a little bit easier, that's what we'll do.
Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time, but in the next half of the show, you guys are doing some pretty neat things to memorialize who Ozzy was and to help remember who he is, and I want to get into that a little bit deeper in the next half hour of the show, but Amanda's going to do another big... Can you do this, Amanda?
Yeah.
Amanda's had a really hard time with this half. I've been doing most of the talking, guys.
Sorry. Okay. Oddmost Pizza. We want to give a huge shout out to Oddmost Pizza. They have been with us since the very beginning, making it possible for us to broadcast to you guys. Some of their pizzas I'm going to go over. So they've got the Sweet Spot, which is a Hawaiian. So it's got extra Canadian bacon, extra pineapple, extra cheese, and breakfast bacon with their red sauce and mozzarella cheese. That sounds amazing. They've got the Big Juan, which is a taco-style pizza. So it's taco meat, mozzarella cheese, lettuce, black olives, fresh tomatoes, green onions, cheddar cheese, and their south-of-the-border sauce. And then they have their lineman combo. So salami, pepperoni, fresh mushrooms, red onions, black olives, Italian sausage, ground beef, green peppers, mozzarella cheese, and then red sauce. I'm telling you guys, their pizza is phenomenal. And
the one thing you haven't mentioned on there that is actually super fun, we'll try to be a little lighter as we end the show, They have a sauce they sell. It's called Hurts Twice. I'm not. It's the sauce is called Hurts Twice. I'll let you listeners you can imagine the rest of the statement in that.
And then they've, of course, have got their chicken strips, boneless wings, cheesy garlic bread, Mojo's. They've got fresh salad, which they've got garden, Greek, and club salad. So 3 different options there. They've got tons of different beers. They've got a Kickin'Cancer one. They've got the Capitals one.
Yep.
Just amazing. They've got 1 pound of buffalo wings, which is only $10.99. That's a great one. They've got donut dunkers. So they've got so many options. So you guys do yourself a favor. Oh, they've even got gluten-free options. That's awesome. Okay, you guys, so do yourself a favor. Don't cook tonight. Go get Oddmo's Pizza. We'll be right back, you guys. Stay tuned.